Okay, so when you're adding or subtracting fractions, the important part is you're looking at your denominator and you're gonna have to see if your denominator are the same or they're not the same. If your denominators are not the same, you have to find a common denominator, okay? So to find a common denominator, there's different things that you can do. So you can look at your denominator and actually multiply them, right? And that will give you a common denominator. Or you can look for your lowest common multiple, okay? So what I say by the lowest common multiple is you take your 3, because that's your first denominator, count your multiples of 3. So that's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and so on. Okay? You take the multiple of 4 and then you write them down. So that's 4, 8, 12, 16, right? Now I can stop because I found that these two are common numbers. Okay? So I know that my lowest common multiple is 12. Okay? So this is one way you can do it, or you can just multiply your denominator. Now with 3 and 4, it's going to end up being that you multiply the 3 and the 4 because they're it happens that when you multiply 3 by 4 is your actually lowest common multiple, but it doesn't happen all the time. Okay? So if I had, let's say, 2 and 12, 2 and no, I'm thinking about something else. Yeah, 2 and 12, right? Let's say if I'm looking at 2 and 12, right? My lowest common multiple is 12, right? Because if I multiply this by 6, that gives me 12. So I don't actually have to multiply the 2 and the 12 together. Okay? So in this case, I know that 12 is my lowest common multiple. Okay? So if I want to make this 12 and this 12. So if I want to make this 12, what do I have to do to the 3 to make it 12? What do I multiply the 3 by to make it 12? 4. So whatever I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator, right? So if I multiply the denominator by 4, I'm going to have to multiply the numerator by 4. So that gives me 8 over 12. Now what do I multiply the 4 by to give me 12? Again, whatever I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator. So that's going to be 9 over 12. Okay? Now, since the denominators are the same, I can add or subtract my numerator. Okay? Now, in this case, I'm going to have to subtract. So that's going to be -1 over 12. Okay? So the important part is that you need to have a common denominator. You have to make that. Whatever you do to your denominator, you have to do to your numerator. And then you subtract or add your numerator. Keep the denominator the same. Are we okay with that? Now, when you multiply, it's much easier. Multiplication is much easier. Multiplication, you just have to take your numerator, multiply them together. Take your denominator, multiply them together. It doesn't require you to have a common denominator. It's multiplication. Okay? So all what you have to do is actually take the 2, multiply it by -1. So that's going to be -2. And multiply the -3 by the 4. That's going to be -12. They have to cancel each other. And now we're going to talk about how to reduce. Okay? So at this point, I didn't do anything. I didn't reduce. I didn't do anything. So my final answer is -2 over -12. This is not my final answer because that can be reduced to a smaller number. Okay? What can you reduce both -2 and -12 to? What can you divide both of them by? By 2, right? -2 is divisible by 2, and -12 is divisible by 2. First thing is we're going to cancel the negative, okay? Because what we know that negative divided by negative is positive. So if I divide this by 2 and I divide this by 2, so that's going to be 1 over 6. Okay? So, you're looking at your sign. If you have negative over negative, we know that they cancel and become positive, right? Then we're going to look at what number can I divide both the numerator and denominator by, so I can reduce. Are we okay with that? Then we're going to move on to the division. With the division, when you're dividing two fractions, you're going to have to change the division into multiplication. Okay? And to do so, if I want to change that division sign into a multiplication sign, I keep my first fraction the same. I change the division into multiplication. By doing that, automatically, it's basically I'm flipping my second fraction. Okay? So basically, I'm multiplying by 4 over negative 3. Okay? Because what happened is, division and multiplication, they're opposite operations. Okay? So if you want to do the opposite of division, you multiply. If you want to do the opposite of multiplication, you divide. Okay? So what happened is, if you are changing the division into a multiplication, you're flipping your second fraction. Okay? Now, since it's a multiplication, what do we do? Multiply what by what? Top by top, the bottom by the bottom. Okay? So that's going to be negative 8 over negative 50. So negative over negative is positive, right? So that basically is 8 over 15. Can I reduce 8 and 15? Is there any number that I can divide both 8 and 15 by? No. 8 only divisible by 2, 4, and 8, right? 15 is divisible by 3 and 5, right? There's no common factor. So that's going to be 8 over 15 because the negative cancels. Now there's some calculators that are good and they do this for you, but a lot of the calculators don't do fractions, okay? They actually give you decimals, and a lot of time decimals are not the most accurate answer that we're looking for, okay? So, and it's very useful when, especially when later on when we move on to the harder stuff, if you have a fraction, to be able to understand what are you going to do with that fraction.